The Witch of the Appalachian Hollow, the woman who used inbreeding to keep her blood pure, a tale so disturbing that locals still speak of it in hushed tones across the misty mountains of West Virginia. In 1952, amid the isolated ridges and deep hollows of Appalachia, authorities uncovered a family legacy so twisted it would forever change our understanding of isolation's true cost. The story begins on October 12, 1952, when local mail carrier Elmer Dawson noticed he hadn't seen elderly Gertrude Harper collecting her monthly pension check, something she'd done religiously for years. After 3 weeks of uncollected mail piling up, Dawson alerted Sheriff Walter Connolly of Mason County. There was always something not quite right about that property, Sheriff Connolly later recounted in his official report. Locals avoided the Harper Hollow like it was poison oak. Children were forbidden from venturing anywhere near it. What authorities discovered at the end of that winding dirt road would haunt them for decades to come. The Harper homestead stood in a clearing surrounded by ancient oak trees, their twisted branches seeming to guard the secrets within. The main house, a crumbling Victorian structure built in the 1870s, loomed over several smaller outbuildings scattered across the overgrown property. Sheriff Connolly and 2 deputies approached the house, noting the eerie silence. No dogs barking, no chickens clucking, just the whisper of wind through the trees. The front door creaked open at Connolly's knock. Inside, the air was thick with decay. They found 76-year-old Gertrude Harper dead in her rocking chair, a family Bible clutched in her gnarled hands. But it wasn't her death that shocked them. It was what they discovered in the outbuildings. In the first structure, they found 3 adults with distinct physical abnormalities, facial asymmetry, unusually small heads, and malformed limbs. 2 men and 1 woman, all appearing to be in their 40s, cowered in corners when the officers entered. None could speak beyond grunting sounds. In another building were 2 younger adults who showed similar characteristics, though less severe. They were like nothing I'd ever seen, Deputy James Hollis wrote. Human, but somehow ... different. Their features were all wrong, like a photograph that's been damaged and put back together incorrectly. Most disturbing of all were the family. Ledgers discovered in Gertrude's bedroom. Dating back to 1842, they contained detailed records of family unions, births, and deaths, revealing a deliberate pattern of familial unions spanning 5 generations. Gertrude Harper, it seemed, was the architect of a chilling experiment in human genetics. Born in 1876 to one of the area's most prominent families, she had received unusual education for a woman of her time, including extensive study of animal husbandry and the emerging science of genetics. Her personal journals revealed a disturbing obsession with blood purity and preventing the family's special qualities from being diluted by outsiders. When researchers from Charleston University later examined the Harper family tree, they discovered that since 1842, not a single marriage had occurred outside the immediate family. Brothers wed sisters, cousins wed cousins, and in several cases, parents wed their own adult children. The result was a family line that grew increasingly compromised with each generation. What makes this case so unique, noted Dr. Harold Whitman of Charleston University in his 1954 study, is the deliberate, calculated nature of the consanguinity. Most cases we've studied involve geographical isolation or cultural practices, but the Harper case shows evidence of purposeful direction, an experiment, if you will, conducted by Gertrude herself. Before you continue watching this disturbing tale, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. These are stories most historians try to bury, but we believe understanding our darkest chapters is essential to preventing their recurrence. Hit subscribe now to ensure you never miss these hidden truths of American history. The roots of Gertrude Harper's fixation with blood purity can be traced back to her grandfather, Thaddeus Harper, who arrived in West Virginia in 1839. Wealthy landowner with mysterious origins, Thaddeus purchased over 500 acres of remote Appalachian woodland and established the Harper estate. Historical records show he brought with him substantial wealth, unusual for settlers in the region at that time. Thaddeus Harper's journals, preserved in the Charleston Historical Society archives, reveal a man consumed by unusual beliefs about heredity. Our bloodline carries gifts others cannot comprehend, he wrote in 1841. Dilution means destruction. We must preserve what flows in our veins at all costs, these writings suggest. Thaddeus may have fled his previous home in Massachusetts following accusations of practicing unorthodox medicine. References to ancient knowledge and preserving the old ways appear throughout his personal writings. Most telling was his extensive collection of medical texts, unusual for someone without formal medical training, including early works on heredity and bloodlines. By 1842, Thaddeus had established the pattern that would define the Harper lineage for over a century. His two children, both by his first wife, who died under mysterious circumstances, were wed to each other when they reached adulthood. This union produced 4 children, including Gertrude's father, Elias Harper. Elias continued his father's practices but added a veneer of scientific inquiry. Having studied briefly at a medical college in Philadelphia before being dismissed for concerning theories, he returned to the Harper Hollow in 1870 and began documenting the family's physical and mental characteristics in detailed ledgers. When Gertrude was born in 1876, Elias took special interest in her education. Unlike her siblings, who displayed increasingly pronounced physical abnormalities, Gertrude appeared outwardly normal. Her intelligence, however, was remarkable. By age 10, she could recite complex passages from her father's medical texts and assist with his examinations of family members. "The girl understands our purpose," Elias wrote in 1887. "She alone among the children comprehends the importance of our work. She will be the one to carry forward our legacy when I am gone." Archival photographs from 1895 show a stern-faced Gertrude at age 19, standing beside her father, while Elias shows subtle signs of the family's genetic burden, asymmetrical features, and an unusually shaped skull. Gertrude appears striking in her normalcy, though her eyes hold an intensity that unsettled even the photographer who noted it in his records. When Elias died in 1901, Gertrude assumed control of the family estate and its inhabitants. Her brothers and sisters, many severely affected by generations of consanguinity, lived in the outbuildings under her strict supervision. County records show that between 1901 and 1952, Gertrude only left the property to collect necessary supplies and later her pension checks. During this period, multiple children were born on the property, though none were ever registered with county authorities. Local midwife Esther Miller, who assisted with several births at the Harper property between 1912 and 1930, later told investigators she was always blindfolded before being led to the birthing room and was forbidden from seeing the infants after delivery. "She paid me triple the usual fee," Miller recalled. "But she made me swear on a Bible never to speak of what I heard in that house. The sounds that came from some of those rooms. They weren't natural. They weren't human sounds." The isolation of the Harper Hollow, combined with local superstition and fear, allowed Gertrude's practices to continue unchecked for decades. The family became the source of local legends, with parents warning children to stay away from the Witch's Hollow and tales of missing livestock blamed on Harper family raids. What few outsiders realized was that inside the seemingly decrepit estate, Gertrude was methodically recording the results of her family's ongoing genetic experiment, documenting physical abnormalities, intellectual capacities, and survival rates with clinical precision. By the time authorities discovered the Harper family compound in 1952, the consequences of generations of consanguinity were devastatingly apparent. The 5 surviving family members found on the property, later identified as Gertrude's nieces, nephews, and great-nephews, displayed a range of physical and developmental conditions that shocked even experienced medical professionals. Dr. Samuel Blackwell, who examined the Harper family members at Mason County Hospital, documented his findings in a report that remained classified until 1979. "In my 30 years of medical practice, I have never encountered such a concentration of congenital abnormalities in a single family," he wrote. "The combination of microcephaly, facial asymmetry, spinal deformities, and intellectual impairment presents a textbook case of genetic decline due to excessive consanguineous reproduction." The eldest survivors, twin brothers Edwin and Edgar Harper, aged 43, could neither speak nor care for themselves independently. Their sister, Millicent Harper, aged 41, possessed limited speech capabilities but displayed extreme photosensitivity and could not tolerate sunlight. The youngest survivors, Jeremiah 26 and Ruth Harper 24, showed less severe physical abnormalities but significant developmental delays. If you're feeling disturbed by this account of genetic isolation, type family trees should branch in the comments below. Your words acknowledge the victims of these terrible practices and help us remember that diversity strengthens, while isolation destroys. Most revealing was the discovery of Gertrude's research room, a surprisingly well-maintained space within the otherwise deteriorating main house. Here, investigators found meticulously organized records dating back to 1842, documenting each family union, pregnancy, birth, and death. Physical characteristics were noted with clinical detachment, along with crude measurements of skull circumference, limb proportions, and developmental milestones. Gertrude's notes from 1947 reveal her awareness of the consequences of her family's practices. Generation 5 specimens show increasing unviability. Of the 12 pregnancies since 1930, only 5 resulted in surviving offspring, all with pronounced physical manifestations. The purification process creates inevitable weakness in the short term, but the final goal remains achievable. What exactly this final goal entailed remains unclear, though anthropologist Dr. Eleanor Simmons, who studied the Harper case extensively in the 1960s, proposed a disturbing theory based on Gertrude's writings. Gertrude Harper appears to have believed that her family carried a special genetic trait that could only be preserved through intensive inbreeding. Simmons wrote in her controversial 1967 paper, "She saw the physical and mental abnormalities not as negative consequences but as necessary sacrifices in a multi-generational process of distillation." Most disturbing is her apparent belief that after sufficient purification, the family would produce what she termed the perfect vessel, a being of extraordinary abilities. This quasi-religious element to Gertrude's genetic experimentation aligns with local folklore surrounding the Harper family. Throughout the early 20th century, Appalachian oral histories reference the Witch of the Hollow who was creating unnatural children to serve some dark purpose. After their discovery, the surviving Harper family members were transferred to Sweetbriar State Hospital, where they remained until its closure in 1975. Hospital records indicate that despite years of rehabilitation efforts, none ever developed the ability to live independently. Millicent died in 1961, the twins in 1964, and Jeremiah in 1970. Only Ruth Harper survived the institution's closure and was transferred to a group home where she lived until her death in 1991. Perhaps most chilling were the graves discovered on the Harper property. Behind the main house, investigators found a small family cemetery containing 37 marked graves, many bearing only initials and dates. Forensic examination of remains exhumed in 1953 confirmed the progressive worsening of genetic abnormalities across generations, with the most recent burials showing the most severe manifestations in a stone-lined chamber beneath the cemetery. Investigators discovered something that never appeared in official reports but was rumored among the officers present. 9 infant remains preserved in glass containers, labeled with dates and detailed anatomical notes. These specimens, dating from 1906 to 1949, apparently represented what Gertrude considered failed iterations in her disturbing experiment. The Harper case sent shockwaves through the scientific community of the 1950s, arriving at a pivotal moment in the understanding of human genetics. Just a year before the discovery of the Harper family, James Watson and Francis Crick had published their groundbreaking paper on the structure of DNA. The timing made the Harper case not just a horrifying human tragedy, but a macabre natural experiment that would influence genetic research for decades to come. Dr. Margaret Sinclair, one of the first female geneticists at Johns Hopkins University, gained special permission to study Gertrude's records in 1955. Her findings, published in the Journal of Heredity in 1956, provided some of the earliest documented evidence of recessive genetic disorders in humans. The Harper family records, while ethically reprehensible in their creation, provide unprecedented documentation of consanguinity effects across multiple generations, Sinclair wrote. The increasing frequency and severity of conditions with each generation confirms theories of genetic load and demonstrates the biological necessity of genetic diversity in human populations. Sinclair's study identified at least 7 distinct genetic disorders present in the Harper lineage, including previously undocumented variations. One condition, characterized by progressive bone malformation and neurological decline, was temporarily designated Harper syndrome in medical literature before being reclassified in the 1970s as a severe variant of a known disorder. The case also had profound implications for the developing field of bioethics. Dr. William Henderson, who served on the first formal medical ethics committee at Harvard Medical School, cited the Harper case in his influential 1958 paper arguing for ethical oversight of genetic research. The Harper tragedy demonstrates the potential for grievous harm when genetic manipulation occurs without ethical constraints, Henderson wrote. While Gertrude Harper lacked modern scientific understanding, Her methodical approach to human breeding represents a disturbing prototype of experimentation that modern safeguards must prevent. Beyond scientific circles, the Harper case influenced public policy regarding isolated communities. In 1957, partly in response to the Harper discoveries, West Virginia established one of the first state programs aimed at providing medical outreach to isolated Appalachian communities. The program, which combined healthcare services with educational initiatives, specifically targeted areas with historically limited genetic diversity. The case also sparked renewed interest in other isolated Appalachian communities. Researchers identified several additional family groups with elevated rates of genetic disorders linked to consanguinity, though none approached the extremes of the Harper family. These studies contributed significantly to understanding the genetic health implications of isolation and led to improved outreach programs throughout the region. Perhaps the most lasting scientific impact came from the preserved tissue samples taken from the Harper family members during their hospital stays. With family consent impossible to obtain, these samples were maintained in medical archives and decades later became some of the earliest human samples subjected to advanced genetic testing techniques developed in the 1980s and 1990s. A 1997 study, conducted with strict ethical oversight, used these preserved samples to identify specific genetic mutations present in the Harper lineage. This research contributed to the identification of several genes responsible for developmental disorders and provided valuable insights into how recessive genetic conditions manifest when inheritance patterns are compromised. The ethical questions surrounding the use of the Harper samples continue to provoke debate in medical circles. As recently as 2018, bioethicist Dr. James Forrester referenced the Harper case in discussions of informed consent in historical medical samples. The Harper family's tragic story reminds us that behind every medical sample is a human life, Forrester noted. While their unwilling contribution to genetic science has yielded valuable knowledge, we must never forget the profound suffering that preceded this knowledge. Today, the Harper Hollow lies empty, reclaimed by the Appalachian forest. After the 1952 discovery, local authorities burned the outbuildings and sealed the main house. In 1963, a mysterious fire destroyed what remained of the Harper mansion, though the stone foundation can still be seen by those few who know where to look. The land itself, all 500 acres, remained in legal limbo for decades, with no legitimate heirs and a complex web of questions surrounding Gertrude's will, which attempted to establish a trust for future Harper generations. The property reverted to state ownership in 1975. In 1982, it was incorporated into the Monongahela National Forest, its dark history intentionally obscured from official records. Yet the Harper legacy continues to cast long shadows across multiple dimensions of American society. In local culture, the story has evolved into a distinct form of Appalachian folklore. While officials attempted to suppress details of the case, oral traditions preserve the cautionary tale. Generations of West Virginia children have grown up hearing warnings about Harper's Hollow and the witch who made monsters from her own blood. Folklorist Dr. Rebecca Martinez documented these evolving traditions in her 2005 collection Appalachian Darkness, Modern Myths of the Mountains. The Harper story represents a fascinating blend of historical fact and supernatural elaboration, Martinez wrote. Over time, Gertrude has been transformed from a disturbed eugenicist into an archetypal witch figure with supernatural powers, while the real tragedy of her victims is preserved in the emotional core of the stories. In some versions, Gertrude gained unholy powers from intimate relations with her brother. In others, she struck a deal with the devil to create a new race of servants. The consistent elements across all variations are the themes of isolation, purity obsession, and the devastating consequences of interfamily relations. Beyond folklore, the Harper case has influenced American popular culture in subtle but persistent ways. Literary scholars have identified the Harper story as likely inspiration for several works of Southern Gothic fiction, including Eudora Welty's June Recital 1955 and aspects of William Faulkner's later works. More recently, the 2012 independent film Hollow Creek drew heavily from the Harper case, though it added supernatural elements absent from the historical record. The 2017 season of the popular podcast American Shadows dedicated 3 episodes to exploring the Harper story and its implications for understanding America's complicated relationship with eugenics and genetic manipulation. Perhaps most significantly, the Harper case continues to inform medical ethics and genetic counseling. The case study appears in numerous medical textbooks as a stark illustration of consanguinity risks, and genetic counselors often reference aspects of the Harper family without naming them when explaining recessive inheritance patterns to patients. Dr. Helen Chun, director of the Center for Genetic Counseling Ethics at UCLA, explained in a 2019 interview, "While we've moved far beyond the crude understanding of genetics that motivated Gertrude Harper's horrific experiment, the basic principles she ignored remain central to genetic counseling today. Genetic diversity strengthens us." The Harper case serves as the ultimate cautionary tale about the dangers of genetic isolation. For the few remaining elderly residents who remember the original discovery, the Harper case represents something more personal, a community's failure to intervene. Elmer Dawson, the mail carrier who alerted authorities in 1952, gave his only interview to the Charleston Gazette in 1982, shortly before his death. "Everyone knew something wasn't right in that hollow," Dawson recalled. "We all heard the strange sounds at night, saw the odd shapes moving behind the curtains when you drove past. But we minded our business, told ourselves it wasn't our place to ask questions. There's not a day goes by I don't wonder if we could have saved some of those poor souls if we'd spoken up sooner." If you've made it to the end of this dark journey into Appalachia's hidden history, please leave a comment saying I watched until the end, so I can get to know who truly appreciates these forgotten stories from America's shadows. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel for more untold historical accounts that challenge our understanding of human nature. Like this video if you found it educational, and share it with anyone interested in the intersection of history, genetics, and human behavior. Your support helps us continue uncovering these crucial yet overlooked chapters of American history. The Harper case ultimately stands as a testament to the dangers of isolation, both genetic and social. In the remote hollows of Appalachia, hidden from public view and oversight, one family's descent into genetic catastrophe unfolded over generations. Their story, disturbing as it is, serves as a powerful reminder of our shared humanity and the fundamental biological truth that connection, not isolation, is the foundation of human thriving.